Hey, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing today? Well, baby, if you are Sean Diddy Combs, the feds are combing through everything going on in your life. And baby, they are pulling up the tapes, or should I say, digging up the bodies. You guys, if you don't know, it has long been suspected that a cloud of death follows Diddy. Now, he's either the most unlucky person in the world, and baby, nobody needs to be his friend because his friends, enemies, lovers, and whatever all have a habit of showing up gone, usually from suspected deletions or murkings. Now, I want to give a special shout out to Brianna for bringing this story to my attention. But baby, we need to look at right now what happened between Diddy and Chris Lightly. Okay. Now, Brianna actually messaged me and said, Tisa, I'm not sure if this is connected, but you were talking about Shakir Stewart. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it. His story sounded familiar, like I heard it before. So I went back to some podcast about a one Mr. Christopher Lightly or Chris Lightly.
At Chris Lighty's wedding, he told me he'd take me shopping. I looked at him like, what'd you just say? Let me move, man, before I do something. You're gonna make me mess up the wedding.
He said you did the same thing to him. You asked him to take him shopping.
Yeah, I thought he needed some clothes. What? I'm a nice guy.
Yo, why are you in fifth?
Hey, yo.
Why y'all not?
Hey, yo, I don't have no beef with
I don't know why.
He was Diddy's manager, 50 Cent's manager, and Mariah Carey's manager. He was found deleted in his home from apparent deletion in 2012. Now, I went into it, okay, and I dove deep. I'm actually doing a special deep dive into this later this week. But for right now, let me tell you what I found, and it's going to shock you. This has all the ear markings of Shakir Stewart. It has all the ear markings of what happened to Kim Porter. It had all the ear markings of what happens to people that Diddy wants to go away. But here's the thing. Much like Kim Porter, the people closest to us said this didn't make any sense. There was even false narratives put out. People said by Diddy's camp. On top of that, did you know that Diddy, Kim Porter, Shakir Stewart, and Chris Lightly all had one thing in common? Baby, they all they dated Kim, because I'm not going to say that Diddy ever loved Kim. Yes, Chris Lightly, he was the person that founded Violators Records. We're about to go into this. He also was dating Kim Porter, and they are saying that Diddy did not like this. And much like Shakir Stewart, the other Def Jam record exec that turned up gone, but magically deleted, Diddy was not a fan. You guys, let's get into this, okay? Also, just to let you guys know really quick, remember I promised y'all that we would get, hold on, let me actually pull this up. All right, I'm back. Y'all, remember I promised I was going to knock on as many doors as I could to bring y'all the truth? Baby, we already did an amazing live with Tiffany Bread. This time, we have Natanya Rubin. If you are watching this at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Natanya Rubin will be joining us on live. She will be taking questions. And you guys, she literally is going to rip the ugly mask off about Diddy. She's going to be talking about what happened in the nightclub with her, Diddy, and Shine. She's going to talk about her life before, what she knew about Diddy. She is an industry vet. We're also going to talk about her life after, the way she even was relocated by the district attorney in New York City because they got word that there was a $150K price on her head. Many people said that was because of Diddy. This woman was not in the street. She is from a long line of business owners. You guys, there's also other people that were involved in that shooting that turned up magically either deleted or it was supposedly a self-deletion. We are following this Diddy rabbit hole down deep. Join us on live. She'll be taking questions. It's going to be an amazing time. 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us. She will be on our channel Sunday, 1:30 p.m. If you are watching it after, go ahead and check replay, gang. But I'm telling you, Natanya knew Diddy from the City College days, from the J-Lo Shine nightclub thing, from everything that happened. And baby, she's going to share everything that she possibly can with us. Okay. So, to get back to what we were actually saying, let's get into this, okay? Let's talk about who Chris Lightly was, okay? Now, he was a record executive that ended up founding Records, okay? Let me just go through his thing because he was a heavy hitter. Chris cut his teeth with the Jungle Brothers and A Tribe Called Quest, two of the genre's most celebrated groups, at the very moment when hip hop began to spread in New York City. When West Coast hip hop nearly sunk the fabled Def Jam label, he resurrected it by finding the perfect talent and orchestrating the deal that saved the original hip hop label from dissolution. When rap went global, so did Chris. His artists toured around the world playing sold out shows in places they could never dream of visiting. For the first time, Black and Latino artists had the opportunity to sit at tables where big money was made. Jungle Brothers, A Tribe Called Quest, 50 Cent's Mobb Deep, Lightly stable at Violator Records included Busta Rhymes, P. Diddy, Nas, Ja Rule, Missy Elliott, Mariah Carey, Fat Joy, Soulja Boy are just to name a few. Mark Echo, founder of Complex Magazine and a former business partner of Chris Lightly and 50 Cent, had the following to say about him. He said he had this hunger, this strong brute force in the same negotiation, but at the same time he did it with charm. The way he could light up a room was crazy. Watching him do his thing with 50 Cent was a masterclass in negotiation. He was the one that realized, looking at artists' tours numbers and recognizing that streaming was going to tank the money in artists. He was the first person to say, wait a second, you can get way more money collaborating with brands. He got 50 Cent's that record Echo deal where he became like a brand ambassador for Echo, something that hip hop had never done because designers thought they were too good. He showed people the power. He also helped negotiate 50 Cent's thing with vitamin water, right? He had violated. He had violated records. Okay, so he was really, really big. They said that Chris was from the South Bronx. And in such a profound way, nobody could ever dispute, right, what he did. Okay, so that's just a little bit. I'm going to do a deep dive, but I want to just bring you guys out. So he was a heavy hitter, okay? He was also managing Diddy. People are saying around that time, Diddy wanted out of that contract, okay? Now, Diddy was a big deal, but baby, Chris Lightly was bigger. He had money, he had power, he had pizzazz, right? Diddy couldn't intimidate him. As a matter of fact, Diddy had to hire him to help make him big. Okay. Now, around that time, Chris Lightly got his eye on Kim Porter. Kim was beautiful, fresh, young. He looked at Diddy as not a joke, but come on now, right? You or me, who's Kim going to be with? Yeah, Diddy had the pizzazz and a party goer, and he was building up his income. But at the end of the day, Chris Lightly had already built an empire, a legacy with Violator Records. Now, people are saying that Diddy felt some type of way, just like he did with Shakir Stewart, about Chris Lightly turning his eye on Kim Porter, and Chris Lightly couldn't compete. Diddy couldn't compete. However, Diddy always had his hand in the streets. Natanya, when she comes on the channel today, is going to tell us more about it. Okay. And maybe she was there. Okay. He always had his hand in the streets. Now, so what happened? Let's look at the way Chris Lightly ultimately passed away August 30th of 2012. Okay. He was huge in the business. Listen to what happened. Now, they said that, yes, he was diagnosed with clinical depression, okay? But let's not put too much role on that because lots of people are diagnosed with clinical depression. Half of North America has clinical depression, right? But even his closest friends were unaware of his mental state until after he deleted himself. On August 30th, Chris's daughter moved out of the family home in the Bronx to live with a friend in Toronto. That same day, right, it was reported through multiple agencies that his wife, Veronica, they were going through a divorce, had kicked him out of the house too. Her flight took off from New York City. Okay. This is the wife that he was estranged from, going through a divorce. They said she kicked him out the house. And then they said they got on a flight. She got on a flight later on. Okay. Took off from New York City, and Violator employees were heading to Chelsea for work, where the disturbing news about Chris began to circulate. Barbara Barker, now Chris's assistant, got a frantic call from Lara Cohen's assistant telling him to go check on Lightly at home. All Lara knew at the time was that Chris had hurt himself, and he was ordered to the Bronx immediately to check on him. Now listen to this story. When he arrived, a crowd of friends and clients surrounded Chris's house. Daryl Thompson, his best friend from childhood, was one of the few people allowed inside. Together with Chris's brother Mike, they carried a heavy body bag out the door. Daryl described the scene like this. It was an eruption. Busta Rhymes falls as if his bones are spaghetti. Everybody was looking around at zombies. Q-Tip, he's just walking around, his hands in his pocket, not saying nothing to nobody. Then he just yells out, "This don't effing feel right." Havoc, half of the legendary group Mobb Deep, and one of Chris's clients remembered the day like this. "I just didn't believe it. He was the kind of guy who would talk me out of doing something stupid." By the end of the day, Chris's death had been ruled a deletion, and the music industry began to grieve one of the people's biggest stars. Now, what were the reasons? The police said, "Oh my God, this must have just been a deletion," okay? They said that Chris was heavily in debt, and he was really, really crying about his wife kicking him out the house, and the estrangement and the divorce, and they had a massive blow up, okay? Except for the fact that Chris's wife actually spoke out and said, "That's not true." They said, "Oh, he owed like 300 million to the IRS, right? And he owed this, and it was this and that." The wife actually gave an interview to the Daily Mail, and she said, "That's not true. We were not fighting. Yeah, the relationship was contentious sometimes. We weren't fighting. I didn't kick him out the house. What are you talking about? He'd agreed to move out. He had a better place. We were actually in a really, really good spot. And oh, by the way, that $500 million debt that everybody was saying, and the police used it as an excuse for why because he had lost everything. And even though he had all this money, he was living in debt. That wasn't true, because he had paid all of it off, except for a couple of $100,000. Now, you tell me, who a man that's going through divorce, but had made peace with his wife, and they were getting along, and she didn't kick him out. He had agreed to go. It was fine. She said this in the Daily Mail. On top of that, this massive tax burden that he couldn't deal with. On top of that, he had paid off almost all the debt. Why would you choose to delete yourself off of the tax burden if you had paid off such a massive debt? That's how much money this guy was bringing in. He was almost out of the clear, and more deals were moving in. He was a maestro, well respected. He was moving on. What was the only thing that wasn't moving on? Well, I'll tell you, Chris Lightly's connection to Diddy, and also the way Diddy couldn't stand the fact that somebody with Kim Porter was getting the upper hand, and Diddy couldn't compete with money or with pizzazz because Chris had it all. Listen, you guys, I'm doing a deep dive into all things Diddy and the Chris Lightly. I do want to tell you guys, make sure you join my live with Natanya. She's going to explain a lot. It's going to be a wonderful live. Make sure you join it. It's 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday the 3rd. If you watch it, make sure you hit replay, gang. I'll talk to you later, and get ready for this deep dive on what actually happened to Chris Lightly, because, baby, I don't know what's going on in Diddy's life, but I can't say the angel of death follows that man around hard. Anyway, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.